Years into their relationship, Tim and Millie find themselves at a crossroads when they move to the countryside, abandoning all that is familiar in their lives except for each other. With tensions already flaring, a nightmarish encounter with a mysterious, unnatural force threatens to corrupt their lives, their love, and their flesh. I usually try to avoid any type of outside influence before watching a movie, but even I couldn't avoid hearing people compare this to The Substance, which, for all its flaws, definitely pushed body horror to the limit. So going in, I was expecting something dark and intense and just absolutely disgusting. And knowing that this was the first feature film of director Michael Shanks, I left a little bit of room in there to be surprised. But I'm here to tell you guys that those comparisons are completely inaccurate. This movie was not what I was expecting, probably not what you're expecting either. And so today I want to talk about what Together actually is, and whether that mix of weird, sweet, and gross somehow makes it work. So Alison Brie and Dave Franco play the main couple in this movie, and they do a fantastic job of creating this very believable couple. I just felt like they had the body language of a couple that had been together for a while and just felt super comfortable and natural around each other. Now when it comes to the characters Tim and Millie themselves, it's a bit of a different story. They become physically unable to stay separated from each other, and it does get a bit freaky. I think it's a really interesting way of kind of taking that thematic messaging to the next level and making it scary. And you see them really struggle against it, kind of how they're struggling against their roles in their relationship. This movie has a big theme of codependency. You really get the sense that they feel trapped by each other but don't have anywhere else to go. Codependency isn't just the theme in this film, it actually becomes the horror aspect of it as well. I do feel like it doesn't really lean into that body horror as much as it might have teased in the trailers or through word of mouth. I feel like if you're gonna say The Substance is at a 10 or an 11 on the body horror scale, this movie's more like a 6 or 7. It's really not that gruesome. So if you're expecting to see stuff like that, I would dial those expectations down a bit and just realize that this movie's more about the relationship of these two and portraying that codependency through horror. So where it feels like this movie is holding back in the sense of body horror, it definitely leans into its relatability and then turns up the weirdness so that way you're feeling a lot more uneasy. Don't get me wrong, there were some jump scares that got me. There were a lot of scenes that had me gripping my seat and holding my breath. This movie was also a lot funnier than I was expecting. There was a lot of jokes that they did land, but they did start to break up the tension a little bit. Part of me does kind of wish that we got to see a version of this movie that was a little bit more gruesome, a little bit more disgusting. There weren't many scenes where I felt like I needed to look away or anything like that. It all felt pretty manageable. I also want to shout out real quick Damon Harriman, who plays Jamie the neighbor, who kind of knows a bit too much. I feel like he brings some genuine misdirection in a film that's pretty easy to map out at times. So when I felt like I knew where the film was going, he would pop up and kind of give me a bit of second guessing, which was nice. I did think it felt a little bit timid as a horror film, but it felt really balanced as a rom-com with horror elements. It's a weird movie, it's gross, it's oddly romantic. I did not go into this movie expecting to laugh as much as I did. So what I'm trying to say really is that this movie wasn't necessarily scary or terrifying. It was more just very weird in a very entertaining way. So if you're looking for something terrifying, maybe wait for Weapons, in a week or two. But if you're looking for something that's weird and messy and metaphorical, then definitely check out Together. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.